Welcome back to The Division 2. I recently jumped into the summit with Pete and Lewis because I was trying to get together some stuff for builds and everything, and basically just play the game for a little bit. And there are so many problems going on with Summit, most of them that have been in there since the launch of the mode, and I want to point them out and just bring them to everyone's attention that is new to the game and stuff, and just basically expose that this mode is an absolute shambles. It always has been, and with the amount of time it's been out and the lack of fixes to things within the mode, I think it will always be an absolute shambles. I think this is basically Kenley College 2.0, besides people still go in there because you can pick your own targeted loot. If there was no targeted loot system for players to pick their own, I don't think people would actually play. I think the mode would have been dead a long time ago. That's my personal opinion though. But moving into some of the problems I noticed when I was playing, mini-tanks. They are a type of enemy in the game for those of you that are unaware. But when you take out the operator of the mini-tank, you've cleared the room, they are supposed to automatically blow up. In this situation, I'll give you one guess as to what happened. Yeah, the mini-tank didn't stop firing after the entire room was cleared out. It was the only enemy left. It should have blown itself up, self-destructed or whatever, but it didn't. It sat there and continued firing at us. Next up, the access keys that will give you the option to open the crate that you can find just before each of the elevators in the mode. They are sometimes not spawning in, or I say that, I don't know if they are always spawning in, but basically, when you are playing without directives, you're supposed to see everything on your minimap. I ran back through this several times looking for keys because they never dropped. You don't hear the sound for them dropping anymore. You can't see them dropping anymore. You can't see them on the minimap. But sometimes they do still actually drop. So I think the developers have just messed up on that front and the keys are dropping every single time. You just can't see where they are, but I have heard at the same time that the keys are also dropping on floors they shouldn't be because they're supposed to drop on the same floor as the elevator, and people have said that they've dropped on the floor when they come out of the elevator, the floor in between because it's basically every 3 floors, and there's just a massive mess up going on with these keys. Another problem, and this is something we noticed as we were playing, basically a little while ago the developers sat there and stated the game and they said that there will be exotic fire teams found within this mode. Once that happens, they never explained to us what these exotic fire teams were, but they were basically Black and White Tusk or whatever factions, and they would be able to shoot flamethrowers out of their weapons. It's supposed to be an underbarrel attachment, but there wasn't ever an underbarrel. It just come out of their main barrel for their gun. And they were shooting things like their MK16s and stuff, but they were shooting flames out of them instead of bullets. We all eventually figured out those were exotic fire teams, and then the developer said enough is enough, we're not calling them exotic anymore, there is nothing exotic about them, we will just refer to them as unusual fire teams. Well, since all of these changes and stuff they've done with all the title updates they've released since this mode first became available, we have seen unusual fire teams, and I quote that, because a lot of them there's nothing unusual about. Sometimes now you'll just get an entire room full of dogs, you'll get a load of rushers, a load of snipers, there'll be different types of enemies that seem to be a lot more common than others when it's an unusual fire team. But we've experienced these unusual fire teams and there's been nothing unusual about them. And I've said it in the past, basically this mode has always had problems with objectives being far too common. You can go from literally room to room and up to another floor and all the objectives will be the same. It's happened for the shade crates and then it happened, I believe it's for the drone ambushes or something. And I said every single time they stop one of these objectives being far too common and occurring too much, they always end up with another objective doing exactly the same thing. Well, this time round in TU12, it's secure the area objective. If you go into the summit, pay attention to how many times you come across the objective to just simply secure the area. Far too common now. They really should have spent enough time to find a good balance with the objectives because it makes the mode even more boring than it already is. And then the next one, the amount of enemy spawns on the Shade Crate objective was supposed to be lowered. They said a little while ago that everyone was complaining, saying there are far too many enemy waves they'll come out with some of the objectives, one of the main culprits being the Shade Crate objective. So what did the developers do? They said, right, we're going to lower the waves, and we instantly went into the summit when that change happened. And it went from, say, 5 to 7 waves down to like 1 or 2. They drastically dropped the amount of waves. Well, the objective was also supposed to be rare, but it's come back as being fairly common compared to some others. And now there are several waves again. We played and had, I'm going to say, in between like 5 and 7 waves all over again. I don't know what these developers do with this game, but whenever they release a title update, it seems as though the things they put in the patch notes, they do change, but then within 2 or 3 days, they go back to how they were before. And that seems to happen with everything. Oh, we've increased the loot quality. Loot goes back to how it was before, or even worse than before, like 3 days later. We've lowered, it's not always 3 days either, like they say they've lowered the amount of enemy waves with the Shade Crate objective, and over the course of a few weeks to a couple of months or something, just I don't even know time frames specifically, but there are several waves again, and the objective is fairly common. Every single thing they seem to implement into this game or change within the game that's supposed to help the player, it always seems to find a way to revert back to how it was before the update. Like rainbow drops, for an example, they are ever so common again. I've gone through bosses, I think it was my very first Summit Access cache, or whatever you want to call them things where you get the keys in the Summit mode. The very first one I opened up after Title Update 12 become available to play, out of the 5 items that drop, 3 of the 5 were rainbows. And I think I was playing Lincoln Memorial, and from 2 of the bosses I had rainbows, but the main boss, the very final one that drops down, I had 2 rainbows from that boss, so I had 3 in the boss room alone. So I really don't understand what happens. Like, I can't explain it, because I can't explain how it would possibly work. But whenever they make changes that are supposed to benefit the player, whenever they bring new things into the game and they're working a certain way, so they change it and then it's like working differently, they always manage to revert it back to how it was before. And that is never ever good. Especially for loot quality, for waves, like certain amounts of enemy waves spawning in modes and everything. It's just, this game, like the management, like whoever's leading this game just need to sort themselves out. They've taken the game in the complete wrong direction. And I don't think, like, as much as we all blame the developers, I don't think it is necessarily just them or them at all. I think it's the people that are in charge of the development that are giving the wrong directions to the people that are actually creating the stuff. But I don't know. I'm going to leave the video there. I've pointed out my problems with the Summit, and just in general, I've seen some of the like dodgy stuff happening within normal missions and everything. But I'm going to leave the video there. Let me know your thoughts and stuff about this in the comments. I will see you in the next video. I hope you guys enjoyed it.